Hey, it's Kevin DeWitt here. In some previous videos, I've talked about mixing mono a couple of times now, and if you haven't seen those, check them out. I'll include some links at the end of the video, or check out my channel. Hopefully you subscribe to my channel and you'll have seen those anyway. But if you haven't, then go and check them out at the end of this video. But in this one here, we're going to specifically talk about mixing in mono versus in stereo. What's the benefits of it? Why would we do it? And what improvement do you get mixing in mono as opposed to mixing in stereo? Now, you obviously, and this is excluding you checking your mix in mono for mono compatibility, because that's something that you should do anyway. But is there an advantage to actually mixing in mono as opposed to mixing in stereo and then just checking your mix in mono? And there is. Okay, now I'm not going to lead you up the garden path here or tell you rubbish. I don't sit here and do an entire mix from start to finish, 10 hours or whatever it takes to do the mix in mono. That would just drive me insane and would be boring. Okay, but I will start a mix in mono and I'll work for chunks of time in mono to get certain things done and get balances right, get EQs right, and that sort of stuff. And then I'll go to stereo and obviously do my effects and all that sort of stuff. And then I might switch back to mono and check things out again. So what's the main advantage that I have, or my personal opinion of mixing in mono as opposed to doing everything in stereo, is that it makes it more difficult for you to get instrumentation to stand out in your mix when you're doing it in mono. And this means that you have to work harder and you need to adjust the EQs of various instrumentation and get them to fit nicely with each other so that each instrument can stand out, even though they're all piled on top of each other down the center of the mix when it's in mono. So when it's in stereo, and you're mixing in stereo, it's very easy to have two instruments sharing pretty much the same frequency space and still be heard quite clearly, because if you've got them panned out left and right, well, you're going to hear them in your ears. They're going to stand out very obvious. But when you're in mono, if they're sharing the same frequency range, quite often they'll blur together or one will mask the other. So this is the advantage of mixing in mono. It means that that masking is going to happen while you're mixing. And then you need to start working on your EQs and all your other things there to make sure that each one of those instruments stand out. And when they do, and you switch then over to stereo, those are going to pop and they're going to really sound really good. Okay, now they might have sounded really good before that as well in stereo. But the thing is that whenever you went to mono, you were going to lose those. And if you mixed an entire song in stereo first, and then you just checked at the end of your mix mono compatibility, if you found those instruments clashing with each other, you're at the end of your mix. Now, are you really going to want to go back and start working on those EQs again that you had perfected, that you loved the mix, you loved the sound of? You're not going to want to, but you might have to, and that would be very annoying. But if you do it up front, because you're mixing in mono, then you're not going to have that problem. When you go and test in mono compatibility, you're going to be checking more for the effects and the stuff that you've done later on, but your EQs are going to be good. Your instruments are going to stand out and they're going to sound fantastic already. You're not going to have to go back to square one and start again and do it all over again. So this is why I highly recommend that you start off in mono so that you can get your EQs and your instruments standing out while they're sitting on top of each other and not one of them's masking the other. And then switch over to stereo and enjoy the mixing process, because mixing in mono is not necessarily an enjoyable process. Okay, it sounds dull, it sounds boring, it's very tedious, but it's obviously a very good technique. So you want to get that done, get that nice, and then switch over to stereo. Then you can enjoy the mixing process, because then you can start playing with the effects to start getting your stereo placements, your stereo effects, reverbs, delays, all that stuff that's going to really make your song just really, sound great in stereo. And then at the end, obviously switch back to mono to do your mono compatibility checks to make sure that nothing has gone astray when you've started playing effects and all that sort of stuff. So let's switch over to the DAW and let's just do a bit of a quick example of this. I'll try to show you what I mean about this and how the process works and how it should happen. And I'll try my best to do that. It may not be perfect, but we'll give it a shot. So let's have a look. All right, so we've got a mix here at the moment. I've just muted the vocals and all that sort of stuff, so because we don't really need that. I want to concentrate on the instrumentation. And this is what we've got in stereo. All right, sounds pretty good. I'm liking that. Guitars can be heard nicely, left and right, panning. All sounds great in stereo. So let's now put it in mono. So obviously this mix is already done. Okay, but let's imagine we're just starting out. And I'm just going to use this in stereo enhancer tool. Just put it in mono just to show using a plugin to make it mono. So when I switch that mono button on there, so that's what we're sounding like in mono now. So let's have a look. What I want to concentrate on is these guitars. So there's a couple of guitars here, but I might simplify it down. Okay, so in stereo, we had these 4 guitars here, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 of them away and I'm going to concentrate on one in the left and right, because we've got some doubled up here just to add some texture. Now, the interesting thing with these guitars is this was actually a single take, and I actually reamped a lot of these through my Kemper with different amp models. So if you looked at the name there, you can see this one is a Kemper Mesa Boogie triple rectifier, and this one here is a Kemper Diesel Hagner. I don't know how you actually say that, but it's German. So these are quite heavily distorted guitar tracks. So the trick with this is when we're in mono, we want to be able to make sure that we can hear both of those elements there. Now, this may be a little bit trickier with this one because it was a single take that's been duplicated and reamped. One of them has been delayed slightly because even with the reamping, it was still too similar and not quite giving the stereo effect. Okay, so what I would do is I would probably start with, say, one of the guitars, and I'd make sure that I had it sounding nice with the EQ. Then I would, so let's say we've got that EQ dialed in and we like that one there, just using the UAD SSL on this one. And then we switch over to the other one and I get that one sounding nice as well. So we've got a bit of an EQ here, settings. So let's say we've got them individually sounding right. Now, when we blend the two together, can we hear them independently in a way? Okay, we're not going to hear everything because they are going to share a fair bit of the same frequency range, but we just want to sort of be able to differentiate each one slightly. So So what you want to hear there, because these are going to be very similar, what you want to hear is obviously there's going to be a level difference as I'm taking them in and out. But what I'm listening for is not necessarily the level difference. I'm listening for the change in character and sound. I want to hear that I'm missing the other one. Okay, so might not be so clear, but when you remove one, you can hear that something has been taken away, some frequency range has been taken away, or some quality's been taken away from the mix. And I've done that both ways. So for instance, I've got the two together and then I take the right one away, and then I have them together and I take the left one away, and I just have a listen. And if I'm not noticing much change, then to me, I need to do something more drastic. Okay, now you'll see here, these EQs are set pretty much the same, but the difference is that the actual amps that they've been reamped to, they sound different. So they already have a difference in their EQ range and sound. So we've got that benefit there, but we can use our EQ to even expand that even more. So let's say we're not noticing enough of a difference. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say pick one of them and I'm going to make that one say brighter, or a bit more top end to it, or a bit more high mids. So we might say we're going to push that one a bit, but we don't want to, if we push that up, we might want to drop down a bit of the lower end stuff. And then on the opposite, we might want to say, take this one here and reduce its high range and boost its low range. So we've got complementing parts then. So let's compare with and without again. So you can hear there when we've got the two together, we've got a nice thick sound. It's not too bright, it's not too dull. But when we take this first guitar away, because we've got our EQ set this way, this one's now dark. So you can hear we're missing that top end. And then obviously the opposite happens with the other way, where we lose the low end and we've got some thinness there. Okay, now if these were actually two different guitar parts that were played as two different takes or by two different guitarists, there'd be slightly differences in the playing, so we would notice the separation a lot more with these. And we don't need to go to these drastic steps of, boosting one with top end and one with low end, but you want some variance of difference of EQ field there so that you're getting a nice thick sound with the two together, but you can also discern each one in the mix and you can hear each part. Now, obviously, if they're playing different parts slightly, a little bit of variance in their melody playing, the chord playing, then the EQ will help those both pop out of the mix. So that's an example of what you can do now. And you can imagine you're not going to want to come back to this further down the track if you were doing this at the end of the mix. So let's say we've got that now and it's balanced the way we want it. Now if we switch back over to stereo, they still sound great. Okay, so they still sound great in stereo because your ears are still merging the two sounds together in a way, but also keeping them separate, left and right. The frequency ranges are still blending together to give you that full range. But now they also sound great when placed in mono. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a bit of an example of what I mean by mixing in mono versus in stereo. Hopefully it's clear. If it's not, ask me any questions in the comments. I'll try to answer them the best I can. If you enjoy the video and you find them helpful, then please subscribe to the channel and check out my other videos. Check the links below for extra training content and all various other things that are going on. Check out my other videos on the channel as well. And yeah, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Let me know. Like the video, and hopefully it's been helpful. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.